Well, thank you for joining us today. We're going to be speaking with Terry Neal, Judge Terry Neal, and Daniel Archer, who are running, and please remind me of the county court that you're running for.
Lake County, County Court, Group 3.
Okay, thank you. And we always start these proceedings with some routine questions. And the first question is, has either of you ever been arrested? Judge?
No, sir.
And Mr. Archer?
No.
And has either of you ever declared bankruptcy?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're through with those, and we can move on to the more pressing questions. Mr. Archer, we'll start with you. Why are you running for judge?
I'm running for judge because I'd like to give back to my community. I served our country through the United States Air Force for 8 years. Have practiced law for 8 years now, and believe that now's the time for me to become a judge, or at least attempt to become a judge, further my career.
Why are you running against Judge Neal?
Judge Neal's position for county court was the only county court position open. I live in Lake County. To run for county court, you have to live in the county you're running in. The other positions were circuit judge positions. Because of the fact that I would be new to the practice of being a judge, I thought county court would be the right place to start.
And why are you running for re-election, Judge Neal?
I like the job. It's great. Usually what we get asked, I guess, is, why do you want to be a county judge? And you get asked that a lot when you're in the position. And I tried to articulate an answer for that, but it's kind of hard sometimes. I think to be a judge, you have to have an innate sense of fairness and wanting to follow the rules, plus a sense of giving back to the community, as Dan says. I look at a county judge as sort of like a referee, that we're in the middle and we make sure that both sides play by the rules and that there's a level playing ground. And you have to have that belief in the American justice system and that innate sense of fair play, I think, to want to be a judge. Plus giving back to the community in some kind of public service, because it is public service, especially county court, because we don't have a lot of litigants, lawyers coming in front of us. It's usually pro se people, and that's their first encounter with the court system. So you do serve those people every day in their little individual capacities through small claims and county court cases, plus misdemeanor cases and stuff. So.
Thank you.
Judge Neal, you like the job, and you think a judge needs to have an innate sense of fairness, but what beyond saying to voters, vote for Judge Neal, she likes the job, would you say to make the case for keeping you in that job?
Well, I think my record shows that I've been fair, that I have tried to be efficient in the job. I work hard. I try to help the people that appear before me in a service-oriented manner by making sure that their cases are heard, that they get an opportunity to talk to me and tell me their story, because a lot of people just want that. They want the ability to just tell you what's going on with their problem. And I think that I've been fairly good at problem solving with some of the people and getting the conflict resolved between people who can't necessarily do it themselves. That's what a lot of small claims is about. And I've been in Lake County for 30 years. I know Lake County. I know the issues that are there with the residents, both old and new residents, and I just hope that they believe that I've done a good job and want to let me continue doing that.
Judge, you spoke a little bit about your strong suits, but can you tell us a little bit about some of the things you think you could improve upon as a judge?
Well, as a judge, you can always improve in patience because you need a lot of patience to be a judge. So every day I work at trying to be more patient with people and making sure that they do have enough time with each individual case to tell me their story. I also try to make sure that I have patience in going through the thousands of pages of documents in cases, that you don't get so jaded by looking at the same thing over and over and over again that you miss that one case that needs that special attention. So I think every day I try to work on being more patient, not just with the processing of documentation, but with the people that come before me as well.
Judge Neal was speaking a little bit about her temperament as a judge. Mr. Archer, how would you convince voters that you have the proper temperament to sit on the bench?
It's actually a really good question. Before becoming an attorney, I served in the Air Force. I had mentioned earlier I was military. Spent quite a bit of time overseas. And upon getting out of the Air Force, I ended up putting myself through law school as a single father. I continued to push all the way through to pass the bar, and then I became a member of the Lake County Bar as well as the Florida Bar, and began practicing. From the time that I started out in the military until present, I have been highly active in the community. I'm a life member of the VFW, a member of the American Legion. I'm a 32nd degree Scottish Rite and Master Mason. I'm involved with Scottish Rite and York Rite bodies. Also have been involved with youth ministry for over 20 years. I've also been ordained as a Southern Baptist deacon. These are just a few of the things that I've done while still practicing and raising a family. At this point, having left the military with only one child, I now have 6. I have 5 daughters and a son. And there's a modicum of patience you have to learn to be a father, and you also have to have the temperament to be able to balance being a parent, balance being a business owner, and solve other people's problems as their attorney, as well as trying to solve issues that may arise at home. Now, my grandfather was very successful at that. He was a circuit judge out in New Mexico and sat for quite a number of years. And he was able to do the same thing in balancing his family, balancing his grandkids at the time, and maintaining his business as well as maintaining the courtroom decorum that he needed to maintain. Now, I don't have the glorious aspirations my grandfather had of going for circuit first. I'm starting with county because I live in the county, and I think this is something that I need to learn, and I need to learn the pattern of becoming a judge. But having said all of that, and being a father and being a veteran and having done all that I've done, I've learned to be patient, I've learned to be fair, respectful, and look at things with a sense of compassion instead of necessarily just ruling that this is the way it is. But there is something to be said with the law being the law. It is black letter. It should be ruled according to what the law is written and the facts apply to it. But there's no reason you can't be respectful and compassionate in doing so.
Mr. Archer, I'm sure you're aware, I assume you read the newspaper, of the backstory in this race, that you are seen by some of the bar as a candidate, as the candidate of trial attorneys in Orlando who are unhappy with the way the incumbent has ruled in PIP cases. I wonder if you'd address that.
I actually found it quite entertaining. The article, I'm sure that Judge Neal, based on what I read in the article, had been interviewed, as well as a couple of people had been interviewed. I was interviewed by the particular writer of that article via phone. I found that 90% of what I had addressed with her was not addressed in anywhere in either part one or part two of her column. As far as being the poster child for the trial attorneys, it was very entertaining that apparently I'm supposed to be getting $100,000 somewhere, but the same author who wrote that piece had both my financial report as well as Judge Neal's financial report in front of her. She referenced different donating parties. There's no $100,000 anywhere in that. Matter of fact, based on just the net worth of the two of us, I seriously doubt there's going to be $100,000 found anywhere in my campaign. I'm not anybody's poster boy. I wanted to run for judge. I sought out people who I believe could assist me. The fact that there's apparently some slant toward individuals who are somehow believed to be involved in me attempting to become judge, I can't answer for them. I can tell you from my standpoint, I intend to be judge.
I don't see the connection between your net worth and how much you collect in campaign contributions. Can you explain that to me?
I didn't see a connection between my net worth and whether or not I should be judged, but it was brought into the article itself.
Mm-hmm.
There was reference to me making or receiving $100,000 that other people had been offered $100,000. If that was true, I'm sure it would have already been addressed to me. However, I was never offered any money to run for the campaign. I sought out the individual that seems to be the person on the striking post here, and I asked him if he would assist me in managing my campaign. He apparently had a good track record with the last candidate he worked with, and this candidate was a friend of mine during law school. So if it was good enough for one of my friends that I trusted, then he had to have had faith in this individual. There would be no reason I shouldn't have faith in him as well.
And do you think that financial problems for a candidate for judge are irrelevant to the candidate's qualifications to serve on the bench?
I think if I filed for bankruptcy or if I had somehow mishandled my own finances to where there would be a question of whether or not I'd be entrusted to finances or accountability with the bar or with the bench, then that may be something that would be justifiable. But I don't, as I had stated to the author of the article, and I'd be happy to state again, I don't know anybody who wasn't in some way, shape, or form affected by the economy. And it may not have been a substantial effect based on their net worth, but I had my impact. I've seen it affect my 3 adult children. I've seen it affect my parents. Everybody in one way or shape or form had to relearn how they were going to deal with their money or how they were going to re-deal with their finances. The fact that I've survived that and I'm still able to pay down my obligations shows that I have good intent. And that's what I would look for in my cases, is to make sure that the people who are litigating in front of me have good intent.
Well, Mr. Archer, what in your legal career has prepared you to be an effective judge? Because you say you've been practicing for, what, 8 years?
For 8 years.
Yeah.
I've had the benefit of not just being confined to Lake County. I've been able to practice in Orange County, Sumter, Marion, Hernando, Pasco, Polk, Clay County. I've even done several cases down in Monroe County, which is one heck of a drive. Being able to see the different temperaments of the judges, being able to see how they view the different motions and arguments that were before them, and having been able to deal with a large number of different attorneys negotiating cases, some cases that never even made it to the courtroom because they were never filed. They were settled before any litigation had to happen. Being able to see those arguments and see how people work with it and how they try to form their cases, I think is going to make me a very, very well-founded judge. I'm going to be very solid on my rulings. I'm going to continue to learn any changes to the law that may come down. Our legislature likes to adjust laws as they see fit, and there's also the rulings that come down from the Supreme Court that have impact. Although the position that Judge Neal is in right now is mainly the civil side, there is the possibility that I may end up having to take criminal cases depending on what the judicial need is. If I'm placed in a criminal category, a perfect example of the ever-changing law is that in the U.S. Supreme Court recently cited a case, or decided a case, and it was Missouri versus McNeely. And in that case, it dealt with an individual who was accused of DUI, and he had a blood draw done on him. There was an accident, blood draw was done, but the officer never had a warrant. The Supreme Court, after hearing argument on the case, said a warrant is necessary. So it has now come full circle, and it's going to have impact on county court cases, which is where most of your first and second DUIs are heard. In that situation, you have to be ready and you have to be flexible enough to apply the law and to learn the law.
So what kind of cases, in addition to DUI cases, have you handled, and have you handled some of the kinds of civil cases that Judge Neal is ruling on now?
I've represented clients in tenant evictions. I've represented clients in small claims actions. I've represented clients in the DUIs and traffic tickets. There were a couple of breach of contract cases that I've represented clients in, not only in Lake County, but also in other counties. The rest of it tends to fall up in the circuit court where I've represented clients.
Judge Neal, how about so you're ruling over civil cases or presiding over civil cases at the moment?
Yes, sir, civil, traffic, and the latest cases are sexting cases that the legislature has passed or created a new law last year, I think, and so now we have sexting cases, and once in a while animal cases, animal abuse cases, municipal ordinance cases, littering, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm.
And has your caseload, does that describe your case, maybe not the new sexting cases, but the other kind of cases you mentioned? Does that pretty much sum up your caseload since you were appointed to the bench?
Well, I did the misdemeanors, as Dan's talking about, the DUIs and that sort of thing, for 2 years, and then, but the rest of the time I have done the civil cases, the landlord tenant evictions, the small claims cases, the breach of contract, the damages under $15,000, the replevins, the traffic tickets, yeah, that's pretty much county court.
Mr. Archer, what do you think is the most significant challenge facing the system right now?
When you say facing the system, you're talking about the judiciary as a total?
Exactly, yeah.
I think balancing well, there, a couple things come to mind. First of all, we've got an issue that is starting to stem up, and I haven't seen it necessarily impact Florida straight across the board yet, but you have children who are coming across the border, and that is creating a whole different view on how immigration reform should be used, and I think it's going to impact the courts here in Florida as well as every other state as we try to deal from a humanitarian standpoint. Additionally, we have the aging populace that we're seeing cases come out of. In the villages in Lake County alone, there's everything from DUIs on golf carts to batteries to different cases that you're not necessarily used to seeing folks that are in their 70s and 80s committing. You have as Judge Neal referenced, the increase of sexting, and it's not just between kids. You have adults who are sexting children. We had recently an officer out in Lake County that made the news for having inappropriately messaged on Facebook a young lady that was still in high school. That creates a problem. And I think a lot of it is that the core values that we as a society had back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and on up, those values have started to die off. The work ethic's not there anymore. The desire for excellence is not there. And you're seeing a lot more of the kids that are coming up thinking they have an entitlement, that they're entitled to all these benefits and privileges, and they're forgetting there are laws put there for a reason, and you're supposed to follow these laws. And then folks that are in the judiciary are having to deal with these people, and there's no accountability. And I think that's the biggest struggle we're facing.
Same question to you, Judge Neal. What's the most significant challenge?
Well, I was sitting here thinking about that while Dan was talking about it, Mr. Owens. There's a couple of things. I think that Dan has talked about a few of the things. Just the sheer volume of cases that we hear every day that have to get through the system. That's a big challenge for us. Because again, as I was saying earlier, sometimes you may miss that one case that you need to give a little extra attention to, especially if it's a domestic violence issue or something like that. But we also have a problem with some of the social aspects that courts are now being asked to do more social things than we ever used to do. Veterans court, drug court, those kinds of things that are specialized to try to help people, not just put them in jail, not just get a judgment against them, but to try to do something to make them productive members of society and try to get them through it. And I think that's a big challenge for the court system to try to do that, because, you know, the courts are like everything else. We're a big bureaucracy. So sometimes it turns pretty slowly trying to help these people. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, is the social stuff that we're trying to do now with the courts to get some of these people out of being criminalized for what's going on.
Do you see those efforts as a good thing? And for instance, does the court have a special responsibility for trying to reduce the number of juveniles who are ending up in the system?
I don't know if we have a responsibility to reduce that number of juveniles, but I think we have a responsibility to deal fairly and honestly with them, and to deal with a little bit of compassion, as Dan had mentioned earlier, because they are juveniles. And the juvenile crime rate has been increasing. And so trying to get those kids, and again, not criminalize them, but get them past whatever's going on in their lives and try to get them out of detention centers, out of jails, out of harmful situations that may make them worse instead of better. I think that is a good thing, especially like the Veterans Court, where they're trying to help some of these veterans that are coming back with the PSTD or the drug problems that they have, and trying to keep them from being criminalized and get them out there. So I don't know that we have a responsibility, but I think a lot of us are willing to take that responsibility to try to help these people.
Thank you. Mr. Archer, same question. Responsibility of a judge?
I think Neal hit it on the head. You have to be fair and impartial. I don't think that there's going to be any way around it. The last time we saw an influx of veterans or of individuals that were experiencing any type of stress of military engagement was during World War II. And then we had the baby boomer generation that came out of that. Now you're in a situation where I don't think, have been without war since the Gulf War. We had the first 2 phases of the Gulf War, Operation, it was Desert Storm and Desert Shield. And then you go into Desert Fox, and it just keeps on going, and they add any other additional name of animal or whatever else they want to name the same battle. But the fact is, we've been engaged on multiple continents in multiple theaters for over 20 years now. And now the military is trying to draw down some of that size, and they're wanting to return these people, no longer have the forward operating bases in Afghanistan, and no longer have places over in Iraq. And you're bringing guys back that have been shot at or have had to shoot people, that have had their best friend blown up, that have watched numbers of people in their own unit die. And they come back to broken families, to broken homes, to broken everything else, and they've got to put their lives back together. Well, those same people are the fathers of these children that are showing up in juvenile court. I actually represented a young man recently who his father had gone through 2 tours in Afghanistan, and he came back and was not the same man that left. This kid has been in and out of juvenile court since his dad first started going overseas, and it has been him acting out. Judges are put in a very precarious position because, as Judge Neal said, you don't necessarily want to punish these people, you want to help them. But how do you keep from punishing somebody that keeps breaking the law, and now you've got victims that want some form of retribution? And I think that's going to be the biggest problem.
Judge Neal, I wanted to ask, follow up on that issue we were talking about before on the PIP cases. Why would you turn down a request from lawyers to cover court costs in cases like those?
I don't know that I have done that, although I think you may be right. The only time I would turn down a cost that it was incurred by an attorney is if that cost was not allowable under the statute or the rules that govern those costs and fees. In PIP cases, there is a statute that governs what costs and fees can be awarded, and the fees have to be reasonable, and if they present that evidence, then I am required to award them the fees. If they have spent the costs or incurred the costs that are listed under that statute and rule governing those, then I am required to award those, and I think I have every time. But if it's not a normal customary cost that is not covered under that statute and the other side is objecting to it, then again we get into the balancing act and they may not get it.
Mr. Archer, you may not see your race this way, but
I got applause on that one.
Sounds like they're having a good time, whatever they're doing.
Sounds like it.
But voters who go to the polls on election day, on primary election day, are going to see two possible choices in this race. So they're going to have to decide why they should pick you over a sitting judge. So I mean, what would you say to them?
Voters are going to have to vote their conscience. They're going to have to vote their decision. I give them the same advice if I'm giving someone advice, and I wouldn't be doing it as a judicial candidate, but if I'm telling somebody on the street or I'm telling a friend of mine, I tell them to vote their Bible. You know, whatever they believe is the right thing for the county, the right thing for the court system, the right thing for the country, then that's what they need to do.
Same question for you, Judge. Why choose you?
Well, I'm a known entity. I've got a record. I think if they do talk to people that are familiar with the legal system in Lake County, that they're going to find out that I'm fair, I'm tough, no nonsense, but I give everybody a shot, and as the referee, I make sure everybody plays on a level playing field and plays fair.
Mr. Archer, who do you consider a model judge and why?
I think, well, of course, one of them is biased, and that was my grandfather. And that was just because he was always, you know, completely fair and impartial. He did, if you had it coming and you had broken the rules, you know, there was punishment to come out, and he would dispense with it quickly, but then it was back to normal. From a local standpoint, I would have to say Judge Donald Grenswitz. Judge Grenswitz was, he was one of my role models in law school. I actually was able to sit in a class with him and have him as my instructor. And he was one of my first cases, one of the judges on the first cases when I came out. He was very, very detail-oriented. Every T must be crossed, every I must be dotted. If you didn't, he'd throw your pleadings out. And he was someone that I had a lot of respect for. I still do. We have, of course, going all the way up to the top, Judge Scalia. Judge Scalia is sitting on the Supreme Court. He is very detailed in his rulings. He's very matter-of-fact. He explores the different sides of his rulings, what possible outcomes they may have. But he is very eloquent in the way he puts the law out there and what his findings are. And I think he is the epitome of what a judge should be.
Thank you. Same question to you, Judge Neal. I guess you could speak for yourself if you want, but
My favorite judge is me.
That's right.
I'm thinking, when you ask Dan these questions, I'm thinking to myself, There's a judge, he just retired from Lake County. His name is Mike Johnson. And he's from Sumter County, which is where I'm from. And he went to law school before I could go to law school. I was still working as a secretary at the time, and he went to law school. And when he came out, he was sort of one of those aw shucks sort of guys. And he worked in the public defender's office and did a great job, and then became a circuit judge. He was appointed circuit judge. And he is one of the most disarming, charming, thorough judges I've ever been in front of. He has the ability to sort of tell you off and make you so glad that he told you.
It's true.
He's incredible. And he's very thorough. When you walk into his courtroom, you know he's read the file, you know he knows why you're there, and he is up on the law. Any case you'd cite to him, he could cite you 3 more back. And he may not be a Supreme Court justice or anything, but I have always admired his ability to work with people, to bring both the public defender and state attorney together, and to be able to sort of do it all by being very firm but very friendly with people. He really is an amazing gentleman.
I think we can wrap it up unless there are any final questions. Okay, thank you both for coming.
You're certainly welcome.
Thank you.
May I just say one thing?
Yes.
Dan had made a comment about the article and that Ms. Ritchie had talked to me. I did not talk to Ms. Ritchie before that article was published, just so the record's straight on that.
Okay.